Football, a little baseball on today's menu. First up, yesterday's matchup between winless teams. The Vikes, they put their first dub on the board. They beat the Texans, and Houston now 0-4. They did it with maybe their best defensive player out of the game. Harrison Smith, a helmet-to-helmet hit in the second quarter. He was bounced. He's an old pro, obviously, Harrison Smith. Ejected from the game, though. Head coach Mike Zimmer didn't agree with the call. All right, so Zimmer sticking up for his guy. Good job there. The NFL should eliminate the rule ejecting players for helmet-to-helmet hits.
I'm going to say out of bounds, BT. This is the same rule that they have in college. It's called targeting, obviously. And so you got to protect players that are defenseless. And even if it's by accident, you're creating a concussion a moment, a concussible moment, not just for the receiving player, but also for the striking player. And they have to litigate this out of the game. This is what it is. Otherwise, they're going to get hit with more and more lawsuits. So I'm going to say out of bounds.
I'm going to say inbounds, but I'm going to obviously put a caveat here because you can't be reckless and certainly want to protect the head for sure. I would like to see them somehow institute like a point policy where if you get, you obviously get the 15-yard penalty, that goes without saying, but if you get, say, 2 prior violations in either in that game or in different games, then if you do it and it's the third time, whatever number they agree upon.
3 sounds right.
3 sounds about right. 3 strikes, boom, you get, one's probably tough to interpret, one's probably egregious. A third time we can't risk anymore. We're just going to, you're out. Go home, take your shoulder pads, you're out. It is a little quick, and I get it. You want to err on the side of caution. The one thing about this, unlike college, and I know where it's coming from, college fans pay money to go see their college teams. Certain NFL fans actually pay money to see certain guys, and it's a little different, And I don't know that you should just automatically throw somebody if there's a little wiggle room or it's tough to interpret. I'd like to see just a little protection to save a clean player from just maybe getting bounced unfairly. I get every other argument, clearly, and I'm with it. But just maybe some sort of a scoreboard that would really penalize those who really need to be penalized. All right, Teak, reigning NFL MVP Lamar Jackson's been a little up and down to start the season. We've mentioned this a little bit. We've talked about it. Now, he's running the heck out of it, over 230 yards in 4 games, but scuffling a bit through the air after last week's 97-yard passing performance against Kansas City. Jackson threw for $193 in a win against Washington. But this year, he has 3 games under 205 yards passing. And right now is 30th in passing yards per game. In or out. 30th. In or out. You are concerned about Lamar's ability to carry a team with his arm if his team is trailing.
Yeah, of course I am. I mean, they have a couple of big-time targets. Mark Andrews, the tight end, who seems to score a touchdown every week. Hollywood Brown, he can get loose at times, but he's not getting the ball in the end zone. That most of this offense for the last really 3 years has been centered on their run game and Lamar Jackson being a catalyst for it. Remember that first year that he came in and took over for Joe Flacco, they were averaging in his 5 games or whatever it was, 320 yards a game on the ground. It didn't make any sense. So, yeah, if you're asking me, do I think Lamar Jackson can lead with just his arm, his passing acumen? I'm going to say no. I don't think he's coached up to do that yet right now.
Well, they might want to start because eventually that athleticism, which is uber and plus, erodes ever so slightly, and then you've got to fall back on the mechanics of the position. So you want to start soon because if you think that you could just change him at the age of 28 or so, it's going to be a little tougher. It'll be further not ingrained in his muscle memory, if you will. Yeah, of course I'm concerned. I think any answer but inbounds is you're latching onto blind faith for his dynamic nature.
That's right.
Because there's no evidence here. I mentioned this in the first hour. He's 0-9 in his career when he's trailing at halftime. So the question is, do you believe he can carry a team when trailing? Well, if you say yes, I would say, well, where's the evidence? Because I just told you he's 0-9 when he's losing after the first 30 minutes of the game. Doesn't mean he can't get there. Doesn't mean he won't get there at some point this year. I think he probably will have a game or two where he cracks through. But he's plateauing a little bit. That's undeniable. And we'll see where it takes us. A little concerning. A little, if I'm a Ravens fan, personally. Okay, let's get to a little college football. Mississippi State, historic offensive performance a week ago. Not as much this past weekend to Arkansas. You lose to Arkansas, you got some issues there.
Yeah, you do.
You got some big issues. It was 21-14 on Saturday. KJ Costello, who we raved about last week, threw for 313, but he threw it almost 60 times. So, really a product of some hollow numbers there. And the record-setting quarterback the previous week also threw 3 picks to just 1 touchdown. Even worse for Mike Leach and his program. The Razorbacks snapped a 20-game SEC losing skid. You got to go back to October of 2010. All right, Leach and Mississippi State's offense is closer to what we saw this weekend than what we saw last weekend against LSU.
I'm going to say out of bounds of that, BT. I think it's more. It's definitely closer to what we saw against LSU, because that's what Mike Leach is going to do. You're going to see the ball fly in the air, 50 to 60, maybe 70 times a game. It's why he always has quarterbacks that lead the league, college football in passing. The problem is Mike Leach is erratic as a head coach, and so circumstances don't matter, and situational football doesn't matter. It's just like, let's just air it out, man. We'll figure it out. It's a good thing will happen if we put the ball up that many times, and you can't win games, consistently that way. You're going to have tons of stats. He's exciting as hell, but I don't know if he's going to win a lot.
Yeah. How do I see this here? I actually think it's closer to what we saw against Arkansas than what we saw against LSU. I don't doubt that he's going to try to fling it as many times as he has already thus far. But, this is not the Big 12. This is not the Pac-12. This is the SEC.
Yeah.
And if you're
they actually play defense,
where they play defense, and they play defense with uber athletes who are, many of them, going in the first round, but certainly first couple of rounds of the NFL draft. So you're not going to get away with this trickery as much as you will in the Pac-12, which is historically porous. The Big 12, which is indifferent to defense. Schematically, he will be stubborn, but the production, I believe, will strongly wane, not just from the LSU game, but even his prior stops, Texas Tech and Washington State. So I believe it's closer to the Arkansas game rather than the LSU performance.
I got an analogy for you, BT.
Hit it.
Mike D'Antoni.
Mike D'Antoni, good one.
College football.
That's a pretty good one. I'll take it. Rivals, American League East. There's been a little bit of a bloodbath this year. These teams don't like each other, and they're staying in the same hotel.
Ooh.
Yankees, and they've seen each other in the lobby a few times. Yanks and Rays, ALDS Game 1. And as I said, bad blood, obviously, going back to some issues in September. Okay, now Boone said something, the rivalry's not going to get in the way of the goal, et cetera, whatever, but we'll see. In or out, we will see multiple instances of pitchers throwing at hitters and multiple ejections during this series, in or out.
I'm going to say out of bounds of that, BT. I think when it comes down to winning a series, that's more important than enacting revenge. Winning is revenge.
I agree with that, but I think with this situation, I believe it's going to get. My answer is inbounds. Unfortunately, I don't want to see a beanball war a couple of steps away from the World Series. I don't want to see. I do want to see Garrett Cole versus Blake Snell tonight. That I very much want to see. But I do think if this series gets a little lopsided, 2-0, something like that, or a rout in a game, 9-3, 13-2, whatever. I think you're going to see some shenanigans here. These teams sincerely do not like each other. Now, you don't want to risk repercussions that would compromise the rest of the series, but there's legit bad blood here. And I actually think the Rays are a little bit more of a better team, well-rounded. Yankees have their hands full, but yeah, I think it's going to be a little messy. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.